The women in Johnny's orbit were obsessed with him. He seemed to be like a drug. They couldn't break the addiction. He would make a point of singling one out and love bombing them nearly to make them feel $1 million, and they're just swooning at this Johnny Creswell. He loved it. You know, he was the centre of attention.
He wasn't good academically. He made up for that on horseback. He was seen as, you know, a bit of a rock star. He was almost like a magician with women. He was able to control and manipulate them as if he was playing a hand of cards. Nobody knew the secrets of his world. This podcast is probably more for viewers, is it?
Well,
than our audio listeners, but we'll do our best.
Don't rule out your listeners.
I'm not ruling out the listeners. I'm going to do my absolute best to do my little, you know, the way I'm kind of like should have been an auctioneer or a house seller or one of those.
One of those presenters on TV who do what's it, Behind the Whole Door?
It's Behind the Whole Door, and it is my next move when I announce my step down. It's a bit like the sort of the RTE news talk.
Well, when I
dramatics.
Well, I could be like you're sort of Ray Darcy, like where I'm rising up through the phoenix from the ashes to take your title.
And I'll be sort of announcing my departure to. I'd actually like a place in the sun. I could do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm going to do my best here, guys. But anyway, the home of the Breaking Bad businessman, I'm sure he hates that title, Nathan McDonnell, and his wife, Jackie O'Duffy McDonnell, has gone up for sale. I mean, this is yet another sort of blow to what was once seen as an idyllic lifestyle enjoyed by the couple in Kerry. And just to remind anybody who can't recall, but Nathan McDonnell, the former boss of the Ballyroe Garden Centre, where a container of crystal meth was stored for a number of months before it was to be shipped on to Australia, meth sourced essentially from the Sinaloa cartel. He was the owner of that, and a very sort of decorated businessman, somebody who was on television, etc. He's now doing 12 years in prison for his role in that plot to export and to smuggle the crystal meth to Australia. But he's lost his business. He's lost his children because he's in jail for 12 years. He has lost everything. And now his actual home is gone up for sale at the offer seeking excess of 750,000, which is a lot of money, but it's a lot of gaff.
It's a huge house. I mean, you know, not to bring in an urban-rural divide, but a similar house...
Which is exactly what you're going to do.
Yeah. Well, a similar house in Dublin would be multi-millions. I mean, it's incredible.
Not everyone gives two hoots about Dublin.
No, they probably...
Because I'd say this is a beautiful part of the country to live in. There's rolling fields behind it, and the house stands immaculately in some sort of manicured lawns and front gardens in a beautiful site.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it.
Bleeding massive.
Bleeding
massive. No. I mean, well, look,
it's
you can
set in
take
a kind of a cross shape, with a very elegant front door and rooms to both sides of it. So there is a huge big, and like viewers here don't have to, you know, you actually could just turn off my monotone voice now and just look at the pictures, but the listeners are going to have to stick with me. The hall is enormous. It's like a ballroom.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they give the square footage, so it's 3,800 square feet, which is huge.
Like three times the average semi-D house.
Probably. And although it has 4 bedrooms, which is not that much, you can see the size of the bathroom, which is bigger than most people's bottom floor. And yeah, it's beautifully done up as well.
Huge amount of living space in it, really. And bedroom space and everything. Look, this house is all about space and, you know, modernity. There's all sorts of, you know, very modern kitchen in there, dining room. The windows are all sort of landscaping the fields and the rolling hills around them. And obviously the driveway is done to the highest standards, marble on the floors. It's sad though too, because, you know, when you look into this house, there are still children's bedrooms with children's bedclothes on the beds and little things on the, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that's the kids' bedclothes, but I mean, this is still the kids' rooms. And it was once the home of what seemed on the outside to be a very happy, successful family, when all the while in the background there was an unravelling of all that and a chaos, and a huge shame was coming for the McDonnells.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, the story of Nathan McDonnell is such an unusual one, and that's why it's generated so much interest, because, you know, he was a very fated businessman, as you said, and for him to get involved at that level, it just seemed so, you know, amazing, because when he was convicted, he wasn't simply somebody who stored the drugs. He was somebody who became involved in the movement of those drugs as well, even though he says he didn't know the quantity or type. So he had a managerial role, if a much lesser than some others. So I suppose but underlying,
with the court has heard during a sentence hearing 150,000. Now, he was over 2 million in debt at the time to the revenue.
Yeah,
which was presumably unpaid taxes from his business, which was Ballyroe Garden Centre, plus a number of restaurants. Ballyroe was something that was handed down to him by his own mother, who had been handed it down by, I think, her own parents. So it was a third generation family business. And Nathan was the only boy in the family. The mother, we heard, had reared her children alone after a separation with her husband, and had gone to work in that garden centre to feed them. It had been a sort of a small, you know, ordinary business.
Yeah.
McDonnell came along, and he started investing a huge amount of funds in it. And it was built into one of these sort of super garden centres where it's almost itself a lifestyle visit.
Yeah.
You know, it's homewares, it's plants, it's a restaurant. It's one of those really nice sort of places to go if you have a few hours.
I think what happened was, as you heard when Nathan McDonnell was sentenced, you heard when he was initially arrested, we heard all about fabulous Ballyroe and his lifestyle. But when you got down into the weeds, you see that it was built on a castle of sand. Is that the phrase? There was no money behind it all. So this home, and people can look inside it because it's up for sale, but you know, there's a huge amount of money has been spent, obviously, doing this up and living in order to live a life of luxury. But simultaneously to all of these things being done and the business in Ballyroe going on, there were just huge debts, and he simply wasn't running a successful business in any shape or form. It was done on credit. Obviously, when those bills started to come in, he sought to prop himself up, I suppose, through this crystal meth business. But you have to look at that.
I don't think it was anything about the bills. I mean, when he was looking to be paid 150,000 for storing that machine with, you know, drugs valued at 32 million, 150,000 was only going to pay for their lifestyle. That's the difference I saw, you know, when you're listening to that sentence hearing, what's going on in the background, and you're listening to what he's getting paid for that. The court heard that he had developed a cocaine problem.
Yeah.
And that had to be funded, and obviously was part of his downfall.
Yeah.
The 2 million revenue bill, the 150,000 wouldn't have been a drop in that.
No, but
nor was he planning to pay it off.
But you know what I find funny? Like, so presumably that was his business debt, and presumably there were other debts going on. I think that's clear from the test. So some of them would have been personal, and some of them would have been business related. But as he's in all this debt, and obviously his life is really chaotic with the cocaine, he's probably still doing up his gaff to make it the most perfect place rather than saving a few grand. And
it certainly looks it from the outside, doesn't it? And inside. I mean, there isn't a corner of the place that needs to. We don't know whether it's been done up for sale, but it's being sold because he's gone spectacularly wallop.
But even while, because you go, you know the famous saying, how do you go bankrupt? You go slowly and then quickly. So presumably he was getting in this financial trouble for a good period of time before it really started getting to the crunch moment. But in the middle of all that, he seems to just keep spending. And it wasn't just the home. There was all sorts of other parts of his lifestyle, including clothing and all of those things that made him stand out in his local area. It's a particular mentality, I suppose.
Now, last week, myself and Eamon were down in the Special Criminal Court for what was expected to be the beginnings of the trial of James Lean. And during McDonnell's sentence hearing, we heard that Lean had been seen in the garden centre and he had been seen kind of going in and out at will and speaking to McDonnell in his office. McDonnell's still only 44, believe it or not. He is a principal, the state will say, in this plot to ship the crystal meth on to Australia. His lawyers successfully, albeit quite strangely, argued that they were snowed under with the data and they couldn't basically give him a proper defence should the trial have gone ahead as intended, and with 5 weeks, I think, set aside in the Special Criminal Court for it. But nonetheless, it has been adjourned and realistically won't take place until next March. Lean will remain in custody for all that time. But he is pleading not guilty to that.
So again, I suppose some of that phone evidence obviously will be crucial. We didn't hear much of. We did hear some of what was on intercepted by police in terms of digital messages, but because Nathan McDonnell pled guilty, they don't have to go into all of that, even though they did give an outline of what it is alleged, what it was proven or alleged against him and others involved in that plot.
Well, during that, sort of somewhat opening of the case, while they argued for it to close again, it was really sort of said that that Lean is going to say he was involved in two of the machines that were in Nathan McDonnell's business. One of those machines was for recycling and a second one for food production, but that he was not involved or had anything to do with the machine that had the drugs in it.
Yeah.
So in other words, he was obviously going into business with McDonnell as regards food production and recycling, but he'd nothing to do with the drugs. So that is his position, in as much as we could garner from the little bit of, arguing really about the case that we heard. We also heard that the phone evidence, basically the case stands or falls on that.
Yeah.
So it's all on the phones, because whatever the case is.
We do know that Nathan McDonnell is not a witness he's not going to be brought as a witness against James Lean. So again, the phones will be very important, maybe movements of people. Obviously, these two men can be put together. I mean, that's a fact that won't be disputed, because James Lean can be seen in the Ballyroe Garden Centre. But obviously his position, as you said, will be that that's nothing to do with any criminal enterprise.
Anyway, the house is for sale there, and it's for the family unit, it is sad to see this going up for sale. Of course, Nathan McDonnell's wife, Jackie O'Duffy McDonnell, has previously been arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence of cocaine.
Yes, she
only a few weeks ago.
Yeah, in August she failed a roadside intoxicant test, as it's called, and she was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence. However, she's not been charged, and further tests are going to be carried out. But yeah, it's been she would have been very well known, in particular, a number of years ago as a social media figure, somebody that would have been called an influencer, though a lot of people are called that, and she would have been very well known for appearing at numbers of social events, down in Kerry, but also in Dublin, maybe back in the day.
Well, she also stepped in to take up the role of director of the food empire after he was charged with that conspiracy to ship the millions. And the filings showed that she was officially appointed the position of director of Smash Burgers Limited on March 9th of last year, which was weeks after the Ballyroe Restaurant Limited, Nathan's former company, informed staff that and suppliers it was to cease trading, and the business had been transferred to that Smash Burgers Limited. The debts to the suppliers they were told would not be carried over.
Yeah, I mean, that's in some extent that's a technical business thing when the money, when the money's not available there.
Sure, it doesn't feel too technical if you're.
No,
one of
it
the
doesn't. No,
suppliers,
absolutely, it doesn't. I mean, I don't mean in that way. I suppose. Yeah, it's.
She did do a interview briefly with the Mail on Sunday, Jackie O'Duffy McDonnell, and said she believed that her husband was seized by a moment of madness when he agreed to take part in this criminal scheme. She said she was absolutely devastated, and the sentencing of a man you're in love with is awful. I'm standing by him, she said, 100%. Now, she wasn't actually in the court for that sentencing. Other members of his family, including his father and certainly one sister, if not two, were there to offer him some support. He was only after being released from hospital, having had his jaw smashed in by he was beaten basically in prison by a serious gangland offender who is sharing Portlaoise prison with him.
Yeah.
But so there is the latest on Nathan McDonnell.
It is.
Things have got to start looking up soon.
Yeah, but look, I suppose he has to get to the final point where whatever business stuff has to be completed, the home has to be completed, and then I suppose he can get on with his life.
With his at least with his sentence.
Exactly.
So it's his life sentence.
Yeah.
Right, he didn't get that. Okay, Niall, thank you.
Thanks, Nicola.